The ship carrying Ethan Carter and Ava Morales arrived at Proxima Centauri after weeks of travel. The planet they had visited before still looked barren, its surface covered in crystalline dust that shimmered under the faint red light of its sun. But this time, they weren't there to observe. They were there to act. Ethan and Ava deployed drones loaded with vials of the modified virus, releasing them into the atmosphere. Within hours, the once lifeless world began to transform. Green shoots emerged from the ground, spreading rapidly across the landscape. Rivers flowed again, carving paths through the newly formed soil. It was as if the planet itself was awakening from a long slumber. "It's working," Ava said, her voice filled with awe as she watched the changes unfold on the monitors. "We're bringing it back to life." Ethan nodded, but his mind was already looking ahead. Restoring one planet wasn't enough, not when countless others remained dead. They needed to find the Architect's archives, the repositories of knowledge Emma and Daniel believed could guide humanity's efforts. Using data extracted from the cube, they identified potential locations where these archives might be hidden, ancient structures buried beneath the planet's surface. Equipped with scanning devices and excavation tools, Ethan and Ava ventured into the ruins. The air was thin, and the silence was almost overwhelming, broken only by the sound of their boots crunching against the ground. As they explored, they discovered strange symbols etched into walls and floors, remnants of the Architect's language. "This has to be it," Ethan said, brushing away layers of dust to reveal a massive door embedded in the side of a hill. It was smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with the same energy as the cube. Ava examined the mechanism, running her fingers over intricate patterns carved into the surface. "How do we open it?" Ethan hesitated, then placed his hand on the door. To his surprise, it responded. The patterns lit up, and the door slid open with a low hum, revealing a vast chamber filled with glowing orbs suspended in midair. Each orb contained fragments of information, blueprints, maps, and records of civilizations long gone. "They left this for us," Ethan whispered, stepping inside. "Not just to survive, but to understand." Back on Earth, Emma and Daniel received updates from the mission. The discovery of the archive confirmed their suspicions. The Architects had intended for humanity to inherit their knowledge. With access to this technology, humans could not only restore the galaxy, but also prevent future catastrophes. Over the following months, teams traveled to other star systems, guided by the information found in the archives. Dead planets were revived, ecosystems reborn. Slowly, the galaxy began to heal. Humanity's role shifted from survivors to caretakers, entrusted with the responsibility of preserving life across the cosmos. But the journey wasn't without challenges. Some worlds resisted restoration, their environments too fragile or damaged to recover fully. Others held dangers unforeseen, remnants of alien species that had adapted to the virus, evolving into something new and unpredictable. Yet, humanity persevered, learning from each setback and growing stronger with every success. One evening, Ethan stood on the observation deck of his ship, gazing at a newly restored planet. Its surface sparkled with vibrant colors, teeming with life. He thought about everything they had accomplished, the lives saved, the worlds rebuilt, and everything still waiting to be done. "We're not done yet," Ava said, joining him. Her tone was calm but resolute. "But we've come a long way." Ethan smiled faintly. "Do you think the Architects would be proud?" Ava shrugged. "I don't know, but I think they'd understand. We're doing what they couldn't." As the ship prepared to leave for its next destination, Ethan glanced at Earth through the viewport. It glowed softly in the distance, a reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. Humanity wasn't perfect, but they were trying. And in a universe so vast and fragile, that was enough. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of mystery and possibility. For the first time, humanity faced the cosmos not with fear, but with hope. They had been given a second chance, a gift from a race long gone. Now it was their turn to shape the future, one restored world at a time. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Earth's government scrambled to assess the damage caused by the virus and coordinate recovery efforts. Entire regions had been devastated, their ecosystems stripped bare before the modified strain could restore them. Cities lay in ruins, their populations displaced or struggling to rebuild. Despite the challenges, there was a sense of hope, a belief that humanity had faced its greatest threat and survived. Emma Lewis stood on a hill overlooking what had once been a barren desert. Now it was alive with greenery. Trees stretched toward the sky, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze. Wildflowers dotted the landscape, painting the ground with bursts of color. It was hard to believe that just days ago, this place had been lifeless. Daniel Harper joined her, holding a clipboard filled with notes. "The modified strain is working better than we expected," he said, his voice tinged with relief. "It's not just repairing ecosystems, it's accelerating growth. Plants are thriving, and animal populations are starting to rebound." Emma nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. "We fixed Earth, but what about the rest of the galaxy? Billions of worlds are still dead. Can we bring them back too?" Daniel hesitated. "It's possible, but it would take years, maybe decades, to produce enough of the modified strain. And even then, we'd need ships, resources, support from every nation on Earth." Ethan Carter overheard their conversation as he approached. "You're talking about going out there, aren't you?" he asked, gesturing toward the stars. Emma turned to him, her eyes steady. "We have to. The architects gave us this chance for a reason. Maybe it's our responsibility to finish what they started, to heal the galaxy, not just Earth." Ethan didn't argue. He understood the weight of what she was saying. Humanity had been spared, but survival wasn't enough. If they wanted to honor the architect's legacy, they needed to do more. Back at Lunar Haven, Ava Morales worked with engineers to retrofit old spacecraft for long-distance missions. The goal was simple yet ambitious: send teams to nearby star systems to deploy the modified virus and begin restoring planets. It wouldn't be easy. Many of the ships were outdated, and the technology required to replicate the modified strain on such a scale was still experimental. But Ava thrived under pressure, her determination driving the project forward. Meanwhile, Emma and Daniel continued studying the cube, uncovering more of its secrets. They discovered fragments of data suggesting that the architects hadn't just created the virus. They had left behind archives of knowledge scattered across the galaxy. These archives contain blueprints for advanced technologies, records of ancient civilizations, and insights into the universe's deepest mysteries. "If we can find these archives," Emma said during a late-night meeting, "we might learn how to adapt the modified strain even further. Maybe we'll discover ways to prevent something like this from happening again." The team agreed unanimously. Humanity couldn't stay confined to Earth, not anymore. The galaxy was vast, and its future depended on their actions. As preparations for the first mission began, tensions arose among world leaders. Some argued that Earth should focus on rebuilding itself before venturing into space. Others believed humanity had a moral obligation to help the galaxy recover. Debates raged in global forums, but ultimately, the decision was made. A coalition of nations formed, pooling resources to fund the initiative. Ethan and Ava were chosen to lead the first expedition. Their destination was Proxima Centauri, where the cube had been found. The hope was that the planet held clues to locating other archives, or perhaps even remnants of the architects themselves. On the day of the launch, Emma and Daniel stood on the observation deck, watching as the ship prepared for departure. Emma felt a mix of pride and fear. She knew the risks, but she also knew they had no choice. This was humanity's moment to prove itself, not just as survivors, but as stewards of the cosmos. As the engines roared to life, Ethan glanced back at Earth one last time. The planet glowed softly in the distance, a testament to resilience and renewal. Then, with a final burst of speed, the ship disappeared into the void. The journey ahead would be long and uncertain. But for the first time in history, humanity wasn't looking outward with fear. They were stepping into the stars with purpose and the promise of a brighter future. The control room at Lunar Haven buzzed with tension as Emma, Daniel, and Ethan prepared to deploy the modified virus. The air felt heavy, charged with both hope and dread. Outside, the original strain had already begun to breach Earth's outer atmosphere, its crystalline dust spreading like a deadly fog. Time was slipping away. "We need to release it now," Emma said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. She glanced at the containment unit holding the vial of the reprogrammed virus. "If we wait any longer, it might be too late." Ethan nodded. "What's the plan?" Emma took a deep breath. "We'll launch it into the upper atmosphere using a drone. Once it's released, the modified strain should spread quickly, countering the effects of the original virus. But we have to act fast. It won't work if the original strain takes hold first." Daniel adjusted his glasses, his face pale but resolute. "And if it doesn't work?" Emma didn't answer right away. She knew the risks. If the reprogrammed virus failed, Earth would suffer the same fate as countless other planets, complete annihilation. But staying silent wasn't an option either. "We don't have another choice," she finally said. With no time to waste, the team moved swiftly. They loaded the vial into a specialized drone designed for high-altitude missions. Ava Morales joined them, having returned from her role piloting the Eclipse Asterisk. Her experience made her the perfect candidate to guide the drone remotely. "Ready?" Ava asked, her fingers hovering over the controls. "As ready as we'll ever be," Ethan replied. Ava launched the drone, watching as it ascended rapidly through the sky. On the monitors, they tracked its progress, their eyes glued to the screens. When the drone reached the edge of the atmosphere, it released the vial. For a moment, nothing happened. Then faint trails of shimmering light began to spread outward, merging with the incoming crystalline dust. "It's working," Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible. The team watched in awe as the two strains collided. Wherever the modified virus touched the original, the crystalline particles dissolved, leaving behind something new, tiny green specks that sparkled like stars. These specks drifted downward, settling gently onto the surface below. Within moments, patches of barren land began to transform. Grass sprouted where there had been only dirt, flowers bloomed, and trees stretched toward the sky. "It's reversing the damage," Emma said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's restoring life." But their relief was short-lived. The original strain was still spreading faster than expected, overwhelming the modified virus in some areas. The battle between destruction and renewal raged across the globe, visible even from space. Entire regions teetered on the brink of collapse. "We need more," Ethan said urgently. "One vial isn't enough." Emma nodded, her mind racing. "We can replicate it. Use the cube to generate more of the modified strain." Working together, the team extracted additional samples from the cube and replicated the virus in bulk. Each batch was loaded into drones and launched into the atmosphere. As the hours passed, the tide began to turn. The green specks multiplied, spreading further and faster. Slowly but surely, the balance shifted in humanity's favor. By dawn, the worst of the crisis seemed to have passed. The original virus had been contained, its destructive power neutralized by the modified strain. Earth was scared, but it was alive and healing. As the sun rose over a transformed landscape, Ethan stepped outside the facility for the first time in days. He looked out at fields of fresh grass and budding flowers, marveling at the resilience of life. Behind him, Emma and Daniel joined him, their faces weary but hopeful. "We did it," Emma said softly. Ethan nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. "Do you think this is what the architects intended? For us to fix what they couldn't?" Emma hesitated before answering. "Maybe. Or maybe they just gave us the tools and trusted us to figure it out ourselves." For now, the galaxy was safe, or as safe as it could be. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, carrying the legacy of the architects forward. But as Ethan gazed at the horizon, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, among the stars, more mysteries awaited, and humanity would need to be ready. The alarms in the Lunar Haven facility echoed through the halls, sharp and unrelenting. Emma Lewis stared at the monitors, her heart pounding, as she watched the energy signatures grow brighter on the screens. The virus was approaching Earth, faster than anyone had anticipated. It wasn't just a distant threat anymore. It was close enough to detect with clarity. "What do we do?" Daniel Harper asked, his voice tight with urgency. Emma didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted between the data streams and the metallic cube sitting in the center of the lab. It pulsed faintly, as if responding to the incoming threat. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "We need to figure out what this thing is telling us. Fast." Together, Emma and Daniel worked tirelessly to decode the patterns within the cube. Hours passed, but their efforts began to pay off. Fragments of information started to make sense, strings of code that described not only how the virus operated, but also its purpose. What they uncovered was both horrifying and awe-inspiring. "The architects created the virus," Emma said, her voice trembling as she pieced together the findings. "But it wasn't meant to destroy everything indiscriminately. It was designed as a failsafe, a way to reset the galaxy when civilizations grew too dangerous or unstable." Daniel frowned. "A reset? You mean extinction?" Emma nodded. "Yes, but it wasn't supposed to spiral out of control like this. Something went wrong. Maybe the architects lost control of it, or maybe they were destroyed by their own creation." As they delved deeper into the cube's data, another revelation emerged. Humanity's immunity wasn't an accident. Embedded within human DNA were traces of the architect's genetic signature. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniable. Humans weren't just descendants of the architects. They were part of their legacy. "This changes everything," Daniel whispered, staring at the screen. "We're not just survivors. We're heirs." Emma nodded slowly. If the architects saw humanity as their successors, then maybe they left us something more than just immunity. Maybe they intended for us to fix what went wrong. Before they could explore the idea further, Ethan Carter entered the lab, his face pale with exhaustion. He had barely slept since returning from Proxima Centauri, and the weight of the situation was evident in his tired eyes. "We don't have much time," he said, glancing at the monitors showing the virus's approach. "It's moving faster than ever. Days, maybe hours, before it reaches Earth." Emma turned to him, determination hardening her expression. "Then we need to act now. The cube contains instructions, not just for creating the virus, but for controlling it. If we can reprogram it, we might be able to stop it." Ethan hesitated. "Reprogram it? Are you sure that's possible?" "No," Emma admitted. "But it's our only shot." With no other options, the team sprang into action. Using quantum decryption algorithms and advanced AI systems, they worked to rewrite the virus's programming. The goal was simple yet monumental: transform the destructive organism into a force for renewal. Instead of dismantling life, the modified virus would repair damaged ecosystems, restoring planets it had once devastated. Hours turned into a sleepless night as the team pushed themselves to their limits. The cube responded to their efforts, its pulses growing stronger and more rhythmic. It was as if the architects themselves were guiding them, offering silent approval. Finally, just as the first signs of the virus appeared in Earth's atmosphere, the reprogramming was complete. A small vial containing the modified strain sat securely in a containment unit, ready to be deployed. "We did it," Daniel said, his voice filled with cautious hope. Emma nodded, though her expression remained serious. "This isn't over. Not yet. We still have to release it, and even then, there's no guarantee it will work." Ethan stepped forward, his jaw set with resolve. Then let's not waste any more time. As the team prepared to launch the modified virus, the facility shook slightly. On the monitors, the original strain loomed larger, consuming everything in its path. Humanity's fate rested on a single gamble. Would the architect's legacy save them, or doom them? Ethan and Ava stood frozen, staring at the metallic cube as it pulsed with increasing intensity. The faint hum grew louder, vibrating through the air and sending shivers down their spines. Ethan instinctively took a step back, but his eyes remained locked on the object. It was clear now. This wasn't just a relic of the architects. It was alive, or at least active in some way. "What's happening?" Ava asked, her voice tense. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his tone low and cautious. "But I think we just woke it up." The cube began to project images into the air around them, not just visions this time, but detailed holograms. They showed towering beings with sleek, angular forms, their movements fluid and precise. These were the architects, the creators of the virus that had consumed the galaxy. The scenes shifted, showing worlds teeming with life before being overtaken by waves of crystalline dust, the unmistakable work of the virus. Then came something new. The holograms depicted humans, or at least creatures resembling humans, standing alongside the architects. They weren't enemies. They appeared to be working together, building structures and studying stars. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. Humanity wasn't just immune to the virus. They were connected to its creators. Before they could process what they were seeing, the cube emitted a sharp, piercing sound. Both Ethan and Ava clutched their ears, dropping to their knees as the noise overwhelmed them. When it finally stopped, the cube went dark, leaving them in silence once more. "Are you okay?" Ava asked, standing slowly and brushing dust off her suit. Ethan nodded, though his mind was racing. "We need to get this back to Earth. Whatever it is, it holds answers." Carefully, they lifted the cube and carried it back to the Eclipse asterisk. As they prepared for takeoff, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced over his shoulder, scanning the barren landscape, but saw nothing except the endless expanse of crystalline ruins. Back on Earth, Emma and Daniel received fragments of data transmitted from the Eclipse asterisk during the journey. The information was incomplete, but it included details about the cube and the holograms it had displayed. Emma stared at the images on her screen, her heart pounding. The connection between humanity and the architects was undeniable. "This changes everything," she said to Daniel, who stood beside her, equally stunned. "What do you mean?" he asked. Emma pointed to one of the holograms, a human figure standing next to an architect. "Look at this. We're not just survivors of the virus. We're descendants, or maybe even creations." Daniel frowned. "You think the architects engineered us?" "It's possible," Emma replied. "Our immunity isn't random. It's genetic. And these images suggest that humans have been part of their plan all along." As the Eclipse asterisk approached Earth, Ethan and Ava braced themselves for the reaction they would face upon returning. They had disobeyed orders, ventured into uncharted space, and brought back an alien artifact that no one fully understood. But they also knew the Council needed to see what they had found. When they landed, a team of scientists and officials greeted them, led by Dr. Michael Grant. His expression was stern as he approached the ship. "Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in?" he demanded. "We didn't have a choice," Ethan said firmly. "This couldn't wait." Dr. Grant's gaze shifted to the cube, which Ethan and Ava carefully placed on a transport cart. For a moment, he seemed speechless. Then, reluctantly, he gestured for the team to take it to the lab. Hours later, Emma and Daniel joined the analysis team. They studied the cube, running tests and attempting to decode its signals. As they worked, the cube began emitting faint pulses again, responding to their efforts. Slowly, patterns emerged, revealing fragments of code embedded within its structure. "These aren't random," Emma said, excitement creeping into her voice. It's a language. A blueprint. A blueprint for what? Daniel asked. Emma hesitated, her eyes wide with realization. For the virus, but also for something else. Something bigger. Before they could dig deeper, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the monitors, energy signatures similar to those tracked by Ethan earlier appeared, except this time, they were closer. Much closer. The virus was coming, and it wasn't stopping. Ethan Carter stared at the blinking coordinates on his screen. Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth, and possibly the origin of the virus that had wiped out civilizations across the galaxy. He knew what he had to do. Waiting for permission from the Global Space Council would take too long, and every second counted. Humanity couldn't afford delays. He turned to Ava Morales, the pilot stationed aboard Orion's I. Ava was in her early 30s, with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. She had been assigned to the observatory as part of a routine rotation, but Ethan suspected she was more than just a pilot. There was something about the way she carried herself, calm, confident, and ready for anything. Ava, Ethan said, approaching her as she worked on recalibrating the ship's navigation systems. I need your help. Ava glanced up, raising an eyebrow. With what? We're going to Proxima Centauri. Her hands froze over the controls. You mean, unofficially? Ethan nodded. The Council won't act fast enough. If we wait, it could be too late. Ava studied him for a moment, then sighed. You realize this is crazy, right? If we get caught, we're finished. I know, Ethan replied. But if we don't find answers, we're all finished anyway. After a brief pause, Ava gave a small nod. All right, let's do it. Together, they prepared the reconnaissance ship Eclipse *, a small but highly advanced vessel docked within Orion's I*. It was designed for short-range missions, not interstellar travel, but Ethan and Ava modified its engines to make the journey possible. They stocked supplies, checked fuel levels, and programmed the navigation system with the coordinates Ethan had received. As they worked, Ethan contacted Emma Lewis back on Earth. Her face appeared on a small monitor in the cockpit. Ethan, what are you doing? She asked, her tone sharp with concern. We're going to Proxima Centauri, Ethan said firmly. We can't wait for the Council to decide. We need to figure out where this virus came from. Emma hesitated, her expression torn between worry and determination. Be careful, she finally said. And keep me updated, Daniel, and I will try to track your progress remotely. Thanks, Emma, Ethan replied. We'll need all the help we can get. With everything ready, Ethan and Ava launched the Eclipse * into the vast emptiness of space. As they left Orion's I* behind, Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was uncharted territory, not just for them, but for humanity itself. Back on Earth, Emma and Daniel worked tirelessly to support the mission. Using data transmitted from the Eclipse *, they monitored Ethan and Ava's journey, analyzing any new information that came through. They also continued their research on the virus, searching for weaknesses or patterns that might explain its behavior. Days passed, and the Eclipse * approached Proxima Centauri. The star system came into view, a faint red glow surrounded by planets orbiting silently in the void. One planet in particular caught Ethan's attention. Its surface was barren, covered in crystalline dust that shimmered under the dim light of its sun. But there were signs of ruins, remnants of a once thriving civilization. This has to be it, Ava said, her voice soft with awe. Ethan nodded. Let's see what's down there. They landed the Eclipse * on the planet's surface, stepping out into an eerie silence. The air was thin, barely breathable, and the ground crunched beneath their boots like broken glass. Everywhere they looked, there were remnants of structures, tall spires, crumbling walls, and strange symbols etched into stone. As they explored, Ethan noticed something glinting in the distance. He walked toward it, brushing away layers of dust to reveal a metallic object shaped like a cube. It pulsed faintly, emitting a low hum. When he touched it, images flashed in his mind. Visions of towering beings shaping worlds, creating life, and then unleashing destruction. They were here, Ethan whispered. The architects. Ava stepped closer, her eyes wide. What does it mean? Ethan didn't answer right away. He stared at the cube, his mind racing. The architects had created the virus. But why? And what role did humanity play in their grand design? Unbeknownst to them, the cube began transmitting a signal. Somewhere far away, something stirred. Whatever the architects had left behind wasn't done yet, and Ethan and Ava had just triggered it. Emma Lewis stood in front of a panel of scientists and officials of the Global Space Council headquarters. The room was tense, filled with murmurs and uneasy glances. She took a deep breath before speaking, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to share. The virus is not natural, she began. It was engineered, designed to dismantle life at a molecular level. A wave of whispers rippled through the room. Emma paused, letting the information sink in. Beside her, Daniel Harper held up a holographic image of the virus's structure. Its intricate patterns glowed faintly, almost beautiful in their complexity. What we've discovered, Daniel continued, is that this organism targets specific chemical bonds found in most extraterrestrial species. But humans lack those bonds. That's why we're immune. The council members exchanged skeptical looks. One of them, an older man named Dr. Michael Grant, leaned forward. If humanity is immune, then why should we be concerned? Isn't this good news? Emma shook her head. Immunity doesn't mean safety. This virus is spreading across the galaxy, wiping out everything in its path. If it reaches Earth, there's no guarantee it won't adapt. It could mutate and find a way to infect us. Dr. Grant frowned but didn't argue further. Instead, he turned to another official. What are our options? Before anyone could answer, Ethan Carter appeared on a large screen at the front of the room. His face was tired, his eyes shadowed from long hours aboard Orion's I*. There's something else you need to know, he said. One of the energy signatures I've been tracking. It's heading toward Earth. The room fell silent. Emma felt her stomach tighten. How far away is it? She asked. Ethan hesitated. Months, maybe less. It's moving faster than anything we've seen before. The council erupted into panicked voices. Some demanded immediate action, while others argued for more research. Amidst the chaos, Emma noticed a young woman sitting quietly in the corner. Her name was Rachel Meyer, a historian specializing in ancient alien civilizations. She had been invited to provide context, though she hadn't spoken much during the meeting. Wait, Rachel said suddenly, her voice cutting through the noise. Everyone turned to look at her. If this virus was engineered, then who made it? And why? Emma nodded. That's exactly what we're trying to figure out. Rachel stood and walked to the front of the room. She pulled up an archive of her research, images of ruins and artifacts from long-extinct alien species. There are legends, she explained, stories passed down by civilizations that vanished thousands of years ago. They speak of a race called the Architects, beings so advanced they could reshape worlds. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You think these architects created the virus? I don't know, Rachel admitted. But if they did, it wasn't random. These legends describe the architects as guardians of balance. They believed in pruning the galaxy to prevent overpopulation or destruction caused by younger species. Emma's mind raced. If the virus truly came from the architects, then humanity might have been spared for a reason. But what reason? Were humans meant to inherit the galaxy, or were they simply overlooked? As the meeting dragged on, tensions grew. Governments wanted answers, and fast. Some suggested launching weapons into space to stop the virus, while others proposed building shields around Earth to protect it. Emma knew none of these ideas would work. The virus was too powerful, too precise. Humanity needed a better plan. Later that evening, Emma sat alone in her office, staring at the glowing data on her computer screen. She replayed the garbled distress signals Ethan had intercepted, listening closely to the fragmented words. "Help us. It consumes everything." Her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was Ethan. His face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "I've got something new," he said. "Another signal. This one's clearer." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What does it say?" Ethan hesitated. "Its coordinates. For Proxima Centauri." Proxima Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. If the virus originated there, then humanity might finally have a chance to understand it. But getting there wouldn't be easy. "We need to go," Ethan said firmly. "Now." Emma nodded. "I'll talk to the council, but they're not going to like it." As she ended the call, Emma stared out the window at the dark expanse of space. Somewhere out there, the virus was coming closer. Time was running out. And if humanity wanted to survive, they would have to face the architect's legacy head-on. News of the galaxy's silence spread quickly across Earth. At first, it was just whispers, rumors shared on social media, and late-night talk shows. But soon, the truth could no longer be hidden. Governments issued vague statements about anomalies in deep space, while scientists debated the cause of the sudden extinction of countless alien civilizations. The public grew restless, hungry for answers that no one seemed willing to give. Emma Lewis spent most of her days locked in the lab at Lunar Haven, trying to make sense of the strange virus she and Daniel Harper had discovered. The more they studied it, the clearer it became that this organism was not natural. It moved with precision, targeting specific chemical bonds found in nearly all forms of extraterrestrial life. Yet when exposed to human cells, it simply lay dormant, as if humanity were invisible to it. Daniel leaned over a glowing monitor, reviewing data from their latest experiment. "It's like we're standing in the middle of a storm, but the rain doesn't touch us," he said, shaking his head. Emma nodded, though her expression was troubled. "Why? Why are we immune?" She stared at the Petri dish containing the virus, its faint glow casting shadows on the table. "And what happens if it mutates? What if it figures out how to infect us?" The question hung heavy in the air. They both knew the stakes. If the virus reached Earth and adapted to human biology, the results would be catastrophic. For now, humanity was safe, but for how long? Meanwhile, Ethan Carter continued his work aboard Orion's Eye *. He had been monitoring the energy signatures from distant star systems, watching as the pulses grew stronger and closer. It was like tracking a wildfire spreading across the galaxy. Each new signal brought fresh evidence of devastation. Entire planets reduced to barren wastelands, their atmospheres stripped away, their surfaces littered with crystalline dust. Ethan replayed the garbled distress signals he had intercepted earlier. Despite the static, fragments of the message came through clearly. "It consumes everything." Those 4 words haunted him. Who, or what, was behind this? And why had humanity been spared? Back on Earth, tensions began to rise. News outlets buzzed with speculation. Some claimed the virus was a weapon created by an ancient alien race designed to wipe out competition. Others believed it was a natural phenomenon, a cosmic force beyond anyone's control. Conspiracy theories flourished online, blaming shadowy organizations or secret government experiments. Amidst the chaos, world leaders struggled to maintain order. At Lunar Haven, Emma received a call from Dr. Samuel Green, the head of the facility. His face appeared on a small screen mounted on the wall. "We've got trouble," he said bluntly. "The council wants answers. They're demanding to know why humans are immune and whether this thing poses a threat to Earth." Emma sighed. "We don't have all the answers yet, but I think the immunity comes down to differences in our DNA. Humans lack certain chemical bonds that the virus targets." Dr. Green frowned. "That's not good enough." People are scared. Emma, you need to find something concrete. Fast. After the call ended, Emma turned to Daniel. They're panicking, she said. If we don't figure this out soon, things could get ugly. Daniel nodded. Let's keep digging. Maybe there's something we missed. Hours later, they stumbled upon a clue buried deep in the data. The virus wasn't just destroying, it was replicating itself using the materials it broke down. In essence, it was feeding off the very life it destroyed. But there was something else. Embedded within the virus's structure were patterns that looked eerily familiar, patterns that resembled code. Wait a second, Daniel said, pointing at the screen. This part here, it's repeating. Like instructions. Emma's eyes widened. You're saying this thing was engineered? It's possible, Daniel replied. Whoever, or whatever, made this didn't just let it loose by accident. This was deliberate. The realization hit them both like a punch to the gut. If the virus was artificial, then someone had unleashed it on purpose. But who? And why? As the pieces began to fall into place, Ethan noticed something alarming. One of the energy signatures he had been tracking was heading directly toward Earth. It was still far away, but it was moving fast. Too fast. Ethan sat back in his chair, his heart pounding. Humanity might have been immune. For now. But that didn't mean they were safe. Whatever was coming, it was bringing death with it. And time was running out. Emma Lewis stood in the sterile, white-walled lab at Lunar Haven, staring at a small sample tube. The vial contained soil and dust collected from a probe sent to a nearby star system, a world that had once been home to an advanced alien civilization. Now, it was lifeless. Emma slipped on her gloves and carefully opened the container, placing a tiny bit of the material under a high-powered microscope. Across the room, Daniel Harper watched her work. He was a microbiologist with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. Together, they had spent years studying extraterrestrial samples, but this one was different. Something about it felt wrong. As Emma adjusted the focus, she gasped softly. Under the lens, the particles looked fragmented, as if their very structure had been torn apart at the molecular level. What do you see? Daniel asked, stepping closer. It's like nothing I've ever seen before, Emma replied. The organic matter, it's been dismantled, completely broken down. Daniel frowned. Broken down? By what? Emma didn't answer right away. She adjusted the settings on the microscope again, zooming in even further. That's when she saw it. Tiny, shimmering specks moving faintly within the debris. They were almost too small to notice, but they pulsed with energy, shifting and replicating in strange patterns. Is that alive? Daniel whispered. I don't know, Emma said. She reached for a pair of tweezers and carefully extracted one of the specks, transferring it to a Petri dish filled with a nutrient-rich gel. Within moments, the speck began to multiply, spreading across the surface like a thin, glowing film. Back at Orion's eye, Ethan Carter continued to monitor the mysterious energy signatures he had detected. The faint pulses were growing stronger, more frequent. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were connected to the strange messages he had intercepted earlier. He replayed the garbled transmission over and over, trying to piece together its meaning. They're calling for help, Ethan muttered to himself. But help from who? His thoughts were interrupted by a notification flashing on his screen. A new batch of data had arrived from Lunar Haven. Curious, Ethan opened the file. It contained preliminary findings from Emma and Daniel's analysis of the alien samples. As he read through the report, his heart sank. The scientists had identified a self-replicating organism, a virus unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. If this virus was responsible for the destruction of entire civilizations, why hadn't it affected humans? Was Earth somehow immune? Or was humanity simply next on the list? Meanwhile, back at Lunar Haven, Emma and Daniel ran more tests. They exposed the virus to various types of cells, plant, animal, and synthetic, but nothing happened. The virus remained dormant, refusing to interact. Finally, Emma decided to try something bold. She introduced the virus to human tissue samples taken from volunteers on Earth. The results were shocking. The virus did nothing. It lay completely inactive, as if it didn't recognize human biology at all. "This doesn't make sense," Daniel said, shaking his head. "How can something so destructive ignore us entirely?" Emma stared at the Petri dish, her mind working furiously. "Maybe it's not ignoring us," she said slowly. "Maybe we're just different." Different. The word lingered in the air between them. Different how? And why? As the hours passed, Emma and Daniel worked tirelessly, running simulations and cross-referencing data. They discovered that the virus targeted specific chemical bonds found in most forms of extraterrestrial life. But those bonds were absent in humans. It was as if humanity had been designed, or evolved, to resist the virus entirely. Emma sat back in her chair, overwhelmed. "If this thing spreads to Earth," she began, but her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish the thought. If the virus reached Earth and activated, the consequences could be catastrophic. But if humans were immune, did that mean they were safe? Or was there another reason they had been spared? Unbeknownst to them, their findings were already making waves. Reports of the virus and humanity's immunity were being sent to the Global Space Council. Governments around the world began to take notice. Panic spread quietly, like ripples in a pond. People whispered about the end of the galaxy, about humanity's role in a universe that seemed determined to destroy itself. And somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, the virus continued to spread, consuming everything in its path. The stars were silent. Ethan Carter stared at the glowing screens in front of him, his fingers brushing over the keyboard as he adjusted the settings on the Deep Space Telescope. The observatory, named Orion's Eye, floated far beyond Earth's moon, a lonely outpost designed to watch the galaxy. Ethan had always loved the quiet here, but tonight, the silence felt different, wrong. For weeks, strange signals had been coming from distant star systems. At first, they were faint, almost like static. But now, the anomalies were impossible to ignore. Entire regions of space that once pulsed with energy and signs of life had gone dark. It wasn't just one planet or one solar system. Dozens of worlds, some home to advanced alien civilizations, had stopped communicating entirely. No messages, no broadcasts, nothing. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He was only 28, but the stress of his job often made him feel much older. His superiors at the Global Space Council hadn't given him clear answers. They told him to keep monitoring, to gather data, but not to jump to conclusions. Still, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened out there. Back on Earth, Emma Lewis sat in her small office at the Lunar Haven Research Facility. She was an epidemiologist, someone who studied diseases, but her work focused on extraterrestrial biology. Her desk was cluttered with papers, charts, and coffee cups. On the screen in front of her, lines of numbers scrolled by, a stream of data sent from probes exploring nearby star systems. Emma frowned as she analyzed the information. Something about it didn't make sense. The probes had picked up traces of organic material, but it looked wrong. Like the building blocks of life had been torn apart at the smallest level. She tapped her pen against the desk, thinking hard. Was this some kind of cosmic event? A natural disaster? Or was it something else entirely? That evening, Emma received a call from Dr. Samuel Green, the head of Lunar Haven. His voice was tense. "We've got reports from multiple sources," he said. "Something big is happening out there. I need you to look into it." Emma nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "I'll get started right away." At the same time, Ethan noticed something unusual on his monitors. One of the darkened star systems showed faint energy signatures, pulsing like a heartbeat. He adjusted the telescope again, zooming in closer. What he saw made his stomach drop. The energy patterns weren't random. They formed a repeating sequence, almost like a code. It reminded him of old distress signals, the kind ships used when they were in trouble. Ethan recorded the signal and sent it to Earth, tagging it as urgent. Hours later, Emma received the transmission. When she played it back, her hands trembled. The message was garbled, distorted, but she could make out fragments of words. "Help us. It spreads. Everything dies." Emma sat back in her chair, her mind racing. Whatever was happening, it wasn't limited to one planet or species. It was spreading across the galaxy, wiping out entire civilizations. And yet, Earth seemed untouched. Humans hadn't reported any illnesses or strange phenomena. Why were they unaffected? She knew she needed to find out more. But as she stared at the blinking cursor on her computer screen, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was standing on the edge of something vast and dangerous, something no one truly understood.